In this tutorial, we're going to cover all of these button functionalities that they added on the Retouch Pro 5. Hi, my name is Nello Johnson. I'm a photographer and retoucher and photographer instructor, and one of the co-founders of the Glamour Retouching Studios, where we teach professional photography and high-end retouching, and also a retoucher at the Retouch Zone. So in the new panel update, they added all these buttons. You could find some of these on the old panels that they had, but this one is more pronounced, and they also added a few more buttons, which 3 that they highlighted to the bottom I think are very important, which we'll get into later. Okay, so on my end, this first one is a select, when you want to select, something or subject or whatever. On my end, it's not working. It could be a Photoshop software issue. So it probably won't be the same for you, but on my end, this one here is not activated. Here we have the mask. So let's just duplicate the layer. So let's say you want to mask in something, mask out something. So in this case, let's say we wanted to put a selection focus only around the glasses or something like that. And we can be able to make a selection like that. So that's that. Then we have, let's just get rid of this here. Let's duplicate that. Then we have the duplicate layer, which, basically duplicate what layer you have to the bottom there. And then we have other tools here. We have the healing brush. So just press Alt and you can start to clean up stuff. Let's get a bigger brush. And so let's put this in normal. And so basically the healing brush to help clean up with stuff. Then we have your regular brush, so you can paint. We have white and we have black, and I will tell you something about this. Actually, when I first started learning retouching, I learned from a retoucher in New York that works for a very multi-million-dollar retouching company that does stuff for brands like Nike, Chanel, celebrities and stuff like that. And I learned from this senior retoucher called Timothy Saxon. He was the head retoucher there. And when Dodge and Burn first started, even old veterans still go through this approach. People get a bit more fancy, but by the end of the day, it's still doing the same thing, They used to start off with a layer. You can have 1 or 2 layers, and it used to be a soft light layer. And all they did was get the white and black brush, turn down the opacity, and just paint it. Just dodge and burn that way. Now people getting all fancy and all that, but at the end of the day, it's still doing the same thing. So this is the old way how they did dodge and burn. And to this day, veteran retouchers who've been around for like 20 years or so, 25 years, they still use this technique. It's still tried and tested. No need to get all fancy and complicated. So brushes you can use in Photoshop for many different stuff. So they have this here. So let's get rid of that. And let's just go back to here. Let's get the panel again. And we have another button here, which on my end, again, it may be a software issue, but I'm not getting this one to activate. But this is basically a gradient. I don't use gradient, but it's registering here. I can see. I think, no, it's not registering. So it could be a Photoshop issue on my end. We have the eyedropper tool. So here, I don't use it, but I've used it before on really like extreme skin conditions or makeup and stuff like that. So you can try to blend in. You know, you can use a soft light layer, and you can just use the eyedropper tool to sample certain areas and to blend in. It's rare I use this, you know, because I try to have a lot of this. I try to point out a lot of this stuff on photo shoots. So usually beauty photo shoots and stuff like that. Like as I'm taking photos, I have monitors so everyone involved can see the problems, you know, and try to correct as much as possible. So it's less work I have to do in retouching. But if we run into these extreme situations, I've had stuff where people had patches on their skin, and I had to just try to blend it in. A lot of times you may not be able to make it perfect, but just to try to take the attention away from a certain area that, you know, the color shift may be huge and stuff like that. Okay, and we have levels here. So levels, I'm going to make a tutorial hopefully in the future. Levels is a way you can brighten and darken, and this is how some people do their dodge and burning. There's actually a way to do dodge and burning in levels. If you'd like to see that, let's leave a comment down below. So this is levels. I never really use levels, but it's a really great tool and stuff like that for retouching and so on. Then we have curves. I love using curves. I use curves all the time. So let's just zoom out. Let's zoom out for this picture. I use curves in all of my retouching images. So curves allows me to add a bit of a contrast and highlight to my images. And also I can go into RGB values. I also use curves that way to give skin that really unique look, because I'm a person, I don't believe in no one style. If you see my work is all over, my style is all over the place. So I don't believe in personally just going for no one style. So you can use curves in all kind of ways to add contrast, highlights, and also you can play with the colors to add contrast and highlights, and you can really tweak the curves to give some really unique looks. Trust me, curves is the way to go when you want to get magical with your colors and stuff like that. So curves there. And we have basically copy layer, straightforward, that one. And we have another button here, and this is basically to make a selection around your subject. Something I don't really see me using, but yeah, it's there, you know. I rather go the traditional way. And this is a background remover. This is quite cool. This is something that Photoshop had, I think, about 3 years ago. So you may not notice it, but it basically tries its best, and it's getting better and better with every update, to quickly select the subject from the background. So that's quite handy, and the more cleaner your photo is in terms of the image, the person from the background and stuff like that, the better the results can be. And we also have a mask here. So if we press B and we come with a white brush, we can paint back in. If you had a background here, I don't have a background here, sorry to say, but if you had a background here, another background, let's just add a background so you can see how that look. And then we can come in and you can add back in stuff. Add, you know, if you need to add back in something. But really great tool. Again, something I don't really play with too much, but for beginner retouchers, I can see this being something you would like to play around with. Okay, and we have these two triangle looking stuff here. This is luminosity mask. and stuff like that. These are something I don't play with in Photoshop at all, but I know people who use this kind of stuff. But personally, me, I don't use luminosity mask for nothing in the world. But if you use it, you're more than welcome. Okay, now 3 very important buttons. We have save, we have save as, and we have save as web. You're probably familiar with these buttons, or all these buttons, even if you know the Photoshop, or if you're just getting into Photoshop. These are 3 buttons you need to know. So let's just start with save. Save, you usually use this when you're done working on a file and you want to save it, and you want to save it with all its different layers. Let's say if you had a bunch of different layers, you're working on this and you want to save it like that. This can be when you're doing for commercial work and you have an art director or other people looking at the files, and they can click off the files one by one if you have a bunch of different layers to get a breakdown of how the retouching was done. Or also if you need to go back in the future and tweak some stuff, you don't have to start the whole retouching process over again. Save as is something like save, except for it gives you more options in terms of the format you want to save it. So if you want to save it as a JPEG, PNG, TIFF, PDF, so you have more. So it's basically like the same way, but it has more different formats that you can save it. Then you have save for web. Something a lot of people, from what I've seen, even with teaching, people don't do. This basically gives you the best option for optimizing how it will give you different options of how you want to save your image. Let's just run that so you can see. Nope. Save for web. So you have different options in terms of how you want to save, and also the quality. Let's just put that there. Also the quality size and stuff like that, and small, medium, large, extra large, stuff like that for your website. So save as is for when you're publishing stuff on the web, social media, and all that kind of good stuff. So that is what that button is for, and I'm happy they put those 3 buttons there. So there you go, the functionality buttons that they have here in the Retouch Pro. A lot of these buttons you can find, all of these buttons you can find all over Photoshop. But when it comes to retouching, the more you learn, the more you appreciate being able to access stuff quickly. So I'm happy they put these stuff here. Personally, my 3 favorite is these 3 right here. These other stuff I know the keyboard shortcuts for those. But these stuff here, the keyboard shortcuts are quite long. So I like that they have these right here, and I can easily click these instead of going here, because usually when I save in 2 formats. I save in save as, and I save in save for web. I feel quite confident in my work, so I have one ready to go for the web, and one ready for if I'm doing some commercial work and art director or something wants to go over the work. But I feel quite confident in my work, and most of the times, I would say 97% of the times, my work just gets approved without having to go back and change anything. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like up, and don't forget, if you would like to purchase this panel, you can go check out the Retouch Zone, and it's a really great panel, and I definitely recommend. So until the next video, bye.